We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 70a. And the previous Amud, the Gemara said that if there's a Zona who's an Ovedes Kochavim who's not Jewish and she's with the Jews, so then we say that even though there's a Yetzer Hara for Zanus, but the wine, if there's wine on that table, the wine is going to be kosher because the Yitzra D'Yei Nesech Lo Takiflu, because the Yetzer Hara of Yain Nesech, it's not going to be strong against them. They're not going to allow this Zona who's not Jewish to touch the wine. Rashi explains, Yitzra D'Yei Nesech Lo Takiflu, that's not going to be a strong Yetzer Hara of Yain Nesech L'Nasuche to pour it as a libation, and therefore that is not a problem. But in contrast, the Gemara continues, Zona Yisraelis, let's say the prostitute would be a Jewish prostitute, V'ovdei Kochavim Mesubin, and there are Ovdei Kochavim, there are non-Jews that are sitting around there, so then Chamra Aser, then we would say the wine is forbidden. My time, what's the reason? Hoel Vizila Alayu, since they hold her in contempt, they view her in that fashion, so Basarayu Gerira, so therefore she is subjugated to them, and they will touch the wine. Rashi explains, Basarayu Gerira Deshavka Lahu Lenasuche, she's going to allow them to pour it as a libation, and that's why in that case the wine is forbidden. And the Gemara continues, how Beisa to have a Yosef Bei Chamra de Yisrael, there was a house where there was Jewish wine in it. Al Oved Kochavim Achda Ledasha Biape, and Oved Kochavim went in there and he closed the door in front of the Jew. Vahave Biza Bidasha, but there was a crack in the door, you were able to see what was going on. Ishtakach Oved Kochavim Dekai Beinei Dani, and then the Oved Kochavim was found that he was standing among the barrels of wine. Amar Rava said, Kol de lahade biza shari, anything that was opposite the crack, that the Jew would have been able to see the Oved Kochavim if he was dealing with those barrels of wine, so those are permitted because he's afraid the Jew will be able to see him through the crack. But the high gisa, but if it's on this side and that side, so then also it's forbidden because there the non-Jew would not be afraid to touch the wine. And Rashi explains, Delahade biza shari af b'shasiya. The part that's by the crack is going to be permitted even to drink it. The mirtas v'lo naga, he's afraid he's not going to touch it. The high gisa asur af b'hanan, the ones on the side, they're going to be asur even to get any benefit from. And Rashi notes, nitfas al knisaso kaganav askin, and this is all talking in a situation where going in there, he's not going to be treated, the Oved Kochavim is not going to be treated like a ganav, like a thief, meaning shahayalo chelik b'yayin, that he did have some portion, some share in the wine. The nitfas olav kaganav, because if it's a situation where he'd be treated as a thief, so then he's afraid to do anything, and kulei shari, it is all going to be permitted. And the Gemara continues, how Chamra de Yisrael, there was wine of a Jew, to have a Yosef Bebesa, that it was in the house, to have a Dayer Yisrael B'Elyon Oved Kochavim B'Tachtona. In this house, a Jew lived in the upper area, the Oved Kochavim lived in the lower area. Shamu Kol Tigra, they heard that there was some argument outside, Nafki, so they all went out, and Kadim also Oved Kochavim Achta L'Dasha B'Yape, the Oved Kochavim, he then went into the house, and he closed the door in front of the Jew. Amar Rava said about this case, Chamra Shari, in this case the wine is permitted, because Meimar Amar, because the Oved Kochavim says to himself, Ki echi the Kadim Asoya, not just like I got in here early, Kadim v'asa Yisrael v'yasa B'Elyona, the Jew, he got into the upper area, the Kachazili, he's able to see me, and therefore he is afraid to do anything. And Rashi explains, Yisrael B'Elyona v'Oved Kochavim B'Tachtona v'Yayin B'Tachtona. In this case, the Jew is in the upper area, the Oved Kochavim in the lower area, the wine is in the lower area. V'Yisrael Roeo Milmala, the Jew is able to see from above. So Shari, that's permitted. And Rashi notes, Kol Shari Dahacha, Shari Af B'Shasiya. Anytime it says permitted over here in these Gemaras, it means it's permitted even to drink. Dahalo Naga Karminan, because then we're saying that he didn't touch the wine. V'Chol Aser, and anytime we're saying it's forbidden, Dahach, anytime over here we're saying it's forbidden, it means it's forbidden af bahana, it's even forbidden to get benefit. Uvakulu hilchas hakarav. And in all of these cases, Rashi says the halach is like Rava. And the Gemara continues, How Ushbiza to have a Yosef Bechama de Yisrael. There was an inn where there was Jewish wine in that inn. Ishtakach Oved Kochavim to have a Yosef at Beidani. Again, an Oved Kochavim was found among the barrels. Amar Rava says, Im nitfas olav kaganav, if this is a situation where he's caught there, he's going to be treated like a thief. So Shari, it's permitted, he's afraid to do anything. Vilo, and if not, Aser, it's going to be forbidden. And the Gemara continues, how Beisa Davi Yosef Bechamra, there was a house where there was wine over there. Ishtakech Oved Kochavim Davi Kaim Beidani, and an Oved Kochavim was found among the barrels. Amar Rava says, Islay li ishtamute, if it's possible for him to escape, so Chamra Aser, so then the wine is forbidden. We'll see Rashi in a moment. V'ilo, and if not, Chamra Shari, the wine is permitted. And Rashi explains, it means as follows. It means to say, if he's able to give some kind of excuse, I went in for this particular reason, so then samcha daite velomirtus, that's a case where he's not afraid of anything. Because he's going in there, he really wants to pour libations. And he thinks to himself, if they find me, I'll give some excuse. Now, even though in terms of touching the wine, he doesn't have an excuse, also it's still forbidden. Because if he wasn't going in there to pour a libation, why was he going in there? So Rashi says it's not similar to the case where the Over Kochavim is in the store. Over there, he went in with permission. We know why he went in. Mutter. In that situation, as long as the Jew doesn't tell him that he's going to be far away, it's going to be mutter. Because then he thinks, if I touch it now, he's going to come and he's going to see me. But if he doesn't have any good excuse, shari, it's permitted, because he's going to be too afraid to do anything, and that's why it's permitted in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Meisvei, we have a question from the following Brisa, Ninal HaPunduk, let's say the inn is closed, Osha Amar Lo Shamor, the Jew tells him to watch, to safeguard the wine, Osir, then it is forbidden. And Rashi explains, Ninal HaPunduk means V'nesiachet Over Kochavim Im Hayayin. It means the Over Kochavim is in the inn and he's alone with the wine. Osha Amar Yisrael Over Kochavim Shamor. Or let's say the Jew tells the Over Kochavim, watch it, meaning Amod Mi Bachutzu Shamor, stand on the outside and watch and be a guard. So the Brisa says, Osir, it's forbidden. Why? The Chayshin on Dilma'al, because now we're afraid that really maybe he did go in there and he touched the wine. Kevan Damar Le Shamor, since he told him to safeguard it, Sam Chadaite Demaflig Minei. So the non-Jew is thinking that the Jew is going away, and therefore he'll be able to go in there with the wine. And so the Gemara says, my lav, is it not? Isn't this Brisa talking? Afagav de lesle lishtamuta, even though he doesn't really have an excuse, still we're saying that it is forbidden. And the Gemara says, lo, no, b'de isle lishtamuta. We're talking about a situation where the Oved Kochavim does have some kind of excuse. That's why he's not so nervous, and that's why it's usher in this case. And the Gemara continues, Hahu Yisrael v'Oved Kochavim dehavi yisivi v'kashasu chamra. There was a Jew and an Oved Kochavim. They were sitting and they were drinking wine. Shama Yisrael kolat saluye bekenishta. The Jew, he heard the sound of the davening, of the praying in the synagogue. So kam v'yazal. So he got up and he left. Amar Rava said, in this case, chamra shari, the wine is permitted because meimar amar, because the Oved Kochavim will say to himself, Hashta midkar leila chamre v'hadarasi. He's going to remember about his wine and he will return. And the Gemara continues, how Yisrael v'Oved Kochavim, there was a Yisrael and an Oved Kochavim, Dahavi Yasivi be'arba, they were sitting in a ship. Shama Yisrael kol shipure devei shimshi, the Jew heard the sounds of the shofar, that it was time for Shabbos to begin, Nafak v'Yazal, so he went out. Amar Rava said, Chamra Shari, again the wine is permitted. Meimar Amar, because the Oved Kochavim says to himself, Hashta midchar leila chamre, he's going to remember his wine, v'hadarasi, and he will come. And the Gemara says, V'imi shom Shabbos. Now, if you're going to ask that he's not worried because it's Shabbos, so the Jew is not going to come, and Rashi explains, V'imi shom Shabbos v'im tomar de samcha daite de Oved Kochavim, if you're going to say that the mind of the Oved Kochavim is at ease, mishum de lo asi Yisrael b'Shabbos, that the Jew is not going to come on Shabbos, ha'amar li Isser Giora, but Isser Giora said to me, as the Gemara now continues again, V'imi shom Shabbos, if the issue is Shabbos, ha'amar li Isser Giora said to me, Isser Giora was Isser the convert, ki havinan bar mayusan, when we were not Jewish, amrinan, we used to say to ourselves, Yehudoi lo mintri Shabbos, so that the Jews don't actually keep Shabbos. The mintri Shabbos, because if they kept Shabbos, kama kisei kamishtachi b'shuka, we would find all kinds of wallets in the marketplace. That's what they thought. So they thought that the Jews don't keep Shabbos so carefully. That's why that is not going to put his mind at ease. And the Gemara continues, and the Mesoras Hashas changes the girsa here to Ve'inhu lo yadu. They didn't know the Svir lon Rabbi Yitzchak, that we hold like Rabbi Yitzchak. The Yamar Rabbi Yitzchak, because Rabbi Yitzchak says Hamotze kis b'Shabbos. If somebody finds a wallet on Shabbos, Molicho pachos midalet amos, you are allowed to carry it as long as you carry it less than 4 amos at a time, and that's why you don't have all these wallets around on Shabbos. But really, the Jews, they in fact do keep Shabbos. And the Gemara continues, Ahu Arya dehavinoim b'matzarta. There was a lion, and the lion was roaring in the wine press. Shama Ovid Kochavim, the Ovid Kochavim heard, and Tasha Beni Doni, he hid among the barrels. And he was hiding among the barrels, and Amar Rava said, Cham Rashari, the wine is permitted in this case, because Meimar Amar, he says to himself, Ki hechi de Tashina Anoa, just like I'm hiding, Itchanami Yisrael Achoroi, there's also a Jew hiding behind me, V'kachazi li, and he sees me. And the Gemara continues, Hanu ganvi de salki le pumbedisa, upaschu chavisa tuva. There were thieves, they went to pumbedisa, and they opened many barrels. Amar Rava said, Cham Rashari, in this case the wine is permitted. My timer, what's the reason? Ruba ganve Yisrael ninu, because most of the thieves here are Jewish, and therefore it's not a problem for the wine. Have uvda ben Nahardoi, there was a case like this in Nahardoi, V'yamar Shmuel, and Shmuel said, Cham Rashari, that the wine was permitted. And the Gemara says, Keman, who does that follow? Ki Rabbi Eliezer, it follows Rabbi Eliezer, the Yamar, who says, Safik biatar, if there is a doubt whether the person entered, then we say pure in such a situation, and this is similar to a case where there's a doubt whether the person entered, we don't even know whether it was a non-Jewish thief. And the Gemara says, D'Tanan, as we learned in a Mishnah, Hanichnas labika b'yamos hageshamim. If somebody enters into an open area in the rainy season, v'tumah b'sada plonis, and there's tumah in a particular field in that bika, in that valley, v'yamar halachti b'makam halaz, and he says, I went in this place, v'eni yodeim nechnasti lo sasadim lo nechnasti, but I don't know if I entered that particular field or not. So that's a situation of safek bia. He doesn't even know if he entered. So in that case, Rabbi Eliezer says, safek biatar, if it's a doubt whether he even entered, he's considered to be pure. Safek magatami, but if it's a doubt whether he touched the tumah, so then we say tameh. That's not the same as a safek whether he entered. If he knows he entered, he just doesn't know if he touched the tumah, then we are strict. And so the idea over here is this seems to be following Rabbi Eliezer, because over here also we're saying that in a situation where we don't know exactly who's the one that entered into this area with the barrels, so then we're saying we're essentially being lenient. And the Gemara says, Lo, no, Shani Hasam, it's different over there. Kevon di'ika de paschi l'shemimona. Since there are thieves that open barrels because they're looking for money, they're not interested in the wine. Havele sfeik, it's actually a doubt of a doubt. It's a double doubt. Because even if in fact the people that entered were ovdei kochavim and they opened the barrels, but it could very well be they weren't looking for anything to do with the wine. They were looking for money. That's a double doubt. And that's why we are lenient in that case. And Rashi explains, Safek Bia, if there's a doubt if the person entered, Delo Yadinan Ovid Kochavim all ilo all, because we don't know if it's the Ovid Kochavim who entered or not. So Tahar, so we say in situations of Tumah, we say Tahar, Umishum Hachishari, and that's the reason it's permitted over here. The Shani Lon Safek Bia mi Bia Vadai, Vesafek Maga. We make a distinction between when there's a doubt if the person entered, or if we know the person entered, but we just don't know if he touched or not. Bika is Sados Harbe Zuet Zalzua. Bika is just a place where there's a lot of fields, one next to the other. Bimos hageshamim shezuruahi. Now, in the rainy season where it's planted, ve'ein rabim dorsan osal. A lot of people are not going to be going through there. V'have rishus hayachid l'tumah. It's considered to be a rishus hayachid as far as tumah is concerned. We're stricter in rishus hayachid. Usveika she'irabah have a sveika tummy. The general rule is a safek tumah in rishus hayachid we say is tummy. V'tumah b'sad plonis. Now, the case here is that there's tumah in a particular field. Bi'achas min hasados. In one of the fields, ve'ein anu yoden ezohi. We don't know which one. Halachti b'makam halaz b'bika zu, and he says I went into this bika, but he doesn't know whether he went into the field, so then we're lenient. But safek maga tami, but if he knows he went into the field, but he's not sure if he touched the tumah, we say tame. Diamar nechnasti l'sadashat tumah baf. He says I entered the field where the tumah was. Ve'eni odeim nagati b'tumim lav. I don't know if I touched it, so then we are stricter. But then the Gemara said it's different over here by the barrels. Kevan deika de paschi chevios l'shemamonas, since some people open barrels for money. Vekevan de chazu de chamru parshi, and when these individuals see that it's wine and not money, they separate. De vignivusayu teri de velomenaschi, because they're busy stealing things. They're not pouring libations. So therefore have a sveika. Therefore in our case it's actually a double doubt. Safek Yisrael, Safek Ovid Kochavim. Number one, we don't know who came in here. Is it a Jew or is it an Ovid Kochavim? V'im tim salomer Ovid Kochavim. If you say it's an Ovid Kochavim, Safek Naga, Safek Lo Naga, you have a doubt whether he touched it or not. Uvaha Filu Rabbanan Modu, and in this case even the Rabbanan would admit we don't have to be following Rabbi Eliezer by the case of Nichnas Labika. V'chi Pligi Rabbanan led Rabbi Eliezer. When did the Rabbanan argue in Rabbi Eliezer? Hechi Demalia saw the Tumah. That's in a situation where the field is filled with Tumah. Di all law lo efshar de lo hel, because if he did go in there, so then it's impossible that he didn't create an ohel over the Tumah. Deleka elachad Safek. That's a situation with just one Safek. and in that case the Rabbanan would actually be strict, and the Rabbanan would argue with Rabbi Eliezer, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Amud Beis.